Eugenia, I am so excited to connect with you. You have such powerful, high vibrational energy, and I'm already just very inspired, even though we haven't gotten to chat that much or get to know one another. So, welcome to the podcast. And if you would like to start by sharing, whether it's your journey or the work that you're doing, just anywhere you'd like to start to get people into this magnificent starburst of a being that you are, and amazing work you
Oh,
do.
well, thank you so much for having me here. And yeah, I think I'll start by kind of explaining who I am so that people can understand why I'm saying or know what I know. I was born clairvoyant, which means that I could always see energy and clairsentient, so I connected multidimensionally, which made for a very unusual life because when I incarnated, I did not forget like most people
Mm.
forget, and then they kind of remember later on in life as they go on a spiritual journey. I did not have that. I came in and I was conscious from the beginning. So I started working with clients when I was 2 years old. By the time I was 14, I already had paid clients and a full practice. By the time I was 16, even more. By the time I was 20 something, I had a tour company taking people to spiritual sites and traveling the world. By the time I was 25, I think I had a bestseller book published, and now I have three of them, and so on. So my journey has always been of service. It's kind of like I
Mhm.
came into this lifetime to serve. And if something, I actually had to figure out how to fit me as a human being into my life, because my life was so oriented on helping other people that the discovery was more about, what do I personally like? What is my preference? How do I fit into that? Do I like to teach here or here? Do it this way or that way? What kind of a people I like to work with, or what kind of issues I like to touch on, and so on. So my journey has always been service first and me second, and over the years it actually equalized more, which is probably almost the opposite than most people's journeys.
That's right. Does sound like that. Wow. So I imagine was your family must have been comfortable with it or even encouraging of your
Oh, it
gifts, or how did
depends.
that work out?
Some people in my family thought that there was something wrong with me. Other people thought, no, she's making it up. She's just normal like everybody else. Others thought it was absolutely awesome. So I had every angle you can think of.
Okay. Wow. That's really amazing. So you don't recall a time ever shutting it down or turning it off or forgetting? Like, did you have any period of time where you were like, you just didn't? But that sounds like not because you started a career so early.
No, I was always aware, conscious, and working with people. But the
Mhm.
difference is that when I was teenager, for example, I wanted to have more of my own life instead of just, working
Yeah.
with people. When I was going to college, I didn't really want to see clients. So, I mean, I had periods when I tried to kind of push that away,
Mhm.
but it still came to me because that's my soul work. I
Mhm.
remember when I was in college, I had a part-time job as a cashier in a store, and people would wait to be in my line to come to my register, and the manager would come and say, what is wrong here? They're every open register, why do you have a huge line? And it's like, because they wanted to be in my line, because they knew they could ask me a question, I would have an answer. And then I would be on my break outside having my juice, and people would come in and stick like $20 bills in my apron saying, please, please answer my question. So it's like I couldn't get away from doing the work, even
Wow.
when I kind of felt like I wanted a little space. But
Wow.
I just had to figure out how to fit it in a way that felt good to me, in addition to
Mhm.
good to the people that I served.
Wow, yeah, that must have been quite a journey because also it feels good to do the work. You
Of
know what I mean? Like,
course.
it's also personally satisfying, feels great. And so how did you go about kind of contextualizing it, getting spiritual education? Because, the world that we live in doesn't really help us to understand what it means to receive psychic information. Most people, typical people aren't accepting that. Were you reading a lot of books, or were you somehow putting yourself, or was it just coming directly from spirit? I'm just curious about
Both.
that.
It was coming directly from spirit. I also have energy guides, like non-physical beings that I
Mhm.
work with. I'm also connected to Solar Council, which is a group of conscious creator beings. But besides that, of course, I was reading a lot and studying of everything you can think of, from anatomy to quantum physics to mathematics and complex way to understand the universe, to anything metaphysical and psychology and biology and so on. So I've studied tons, but most of that was not to gather information. It was to learn how to translate what I get into ways that people can understand. I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody would come to me and I would, like, let's go back to like when I was 15 years old. I would look at the person and I would say like, okay, you have this green thing going on in your liver and there's this spot that's moving into over here. So we need to make sure that you go back to having your liver yellow and breathe deeper. And the person
Mm-hmm.
goes like, oh, okay, I'm going to try to figure that out. And then I would give them suggestions how to do it. But what I've learned to say is what it actually meant, which is what I would get. I just didn't have the translation. And let's say
Right.
the same thing now I would say as, okay, you are envious of this specific person. And that envy is creating compression in you, which then not allowing you to receive the thing that you're intending to create. So what you need is a better boundary and then go into self-love. So then you can release the other person and not be envious of them, but be inspired by them. Same
Wow.
thing, but
Yeah.
it's a very different translation. So all my learning and reading was more from the standpoint of learning how to do that
Yeah.
instead of like to understand or to get something. I was getting plenty. It's the like, how do I say it in a way that landed for that person? And then I've learned, of course, over the years to specifically speak to the language of each client so that
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit different. The same thing I could say to two different clients differently.
Right, right. That's fascinating. You said you mentioned quantum physics
Mm-hmm.
and I also so I wonder, do you get messages that are sort of future paced or like prophetic? Is that a part of it, or is it more individuated to helping human beings? You know what I mean? Like, so do you have a sense of the energy path that we are on or anything like that? Is that the kind of messaging you pay attention to or receive?
Yeah, and first of all, I would say it's not like I get messages. It's
Yeah.
more like I'm literally aware. So like you would
Uh-huh.
go online and you would do some searching and then some sites will pop up and you will know what you're looking at, and then you kind of like have your own opinion about it and you like this one
Mhm.
more than that, and then you pull out from that and so on. So I do the same thing with universal intelligence. So it's
Mhm.
not like I get some downloads. That does happen too, but most of my knowing is actually more direct interface with the universe. And as far as like if it's future paced, I see timelines, I see possibilities. So
Mhm.
what that means is like when I talk to somebody and they say like, oh, I want to create this. First of all, I would see the past as it what's in the way of creating this that they right now
Mhm.
not able to create. Maybe a relationship or a career or a new client if they are self-employed or whatever. But then we will also look like, okay, what would be the best way to go about creating it?
Mhm.
And universe, like quantum field, is 100% possible 100% of the time. So everything is possible. Some are more likely, some less likely, but everything is possible. So it's more about like, okay, you want to create, let's say, a relationship. Now let's look at how can you go about it. You can intend and do some daily practice. You can work with the past issue, of course, to clean that up and then go, I don't know, online dating. You can connect to the people you know and just let know that, you know, your friends that you're now looking for relationships and you're open and so on. Like there are many possibilities. When the person envisions like, oh, okay, so let's say I'll call my friends and I tell them, as soon as they did that in their field, I can see what would happen if they do that.
Right.
And then let's say we say, okay, this is one version. Let's look another way. Let's say you go on social media and you start like dating on social sites or something. Okay, so let's say I'll go do that. And now they envision that for themselves. I don't need to know what they're thinking. I can just watch it in their field and I can see like, okay, that means this. And then we kind of like lay out the options. Some options are so much quicker, faster, easeful, and in flow than other options. even though there are millions of ways to do the same thing.
Mhm.
So then I would make a suggestion as to like, okay, if you go about it this way, you will probably get there faster, but maybe it's a little more challenging. If you go this way, maybe a little bit longer, but way more fun way to do it. If you go this way, it will be a really long detour before you get there. So it not to say like I see the future, because future is not written. So it's
Right.
a kind of a mistranslation humans have when they think like, oh, this is how future will happen. There's
Mhm.
many futures. They
Right.
like ultimate possibilities. There's so many of every possible thing. So if we're very clear, what do we want to pick out of the quantum field? And how do we connect to that? What's in the way of connecting to that? Then we can become the thing that we just connected to, and then we manifest it in our life. So that is sort of future paced, but it's in a
Sure.
linear time future. But I work with
Yeah.
spherical time when it all exists at once.
And right, of course, we're always creating our reality. And when it comes to, the a lot of people creating it though. So let's say like, for example, we have some terrible crises as humankind, like climate change, the environment, and so we've got like momentum and it's difficult for one person to. Well, I don't know. Like, I guess there's a possibility the quantum field would say, of course, it's possible for one person to change everything. It's a possibility because everything's a possibility. So, is that something you are looking into as well, or do you kind of that's what I mean. Like, what about collective possible futures
Yeah,
or
collective
possible
future
timelines?
is different than personal
Hmm.
future for
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
I have Transcension Gate is one of the groups where I do this type of work on a planetary morphogenic fields with a group
Hmm.
of people. So
Hmm.
it's
Oh,
possible
great.
to affect for sure, but you need 22% of the collective morphogenic field to agree with the new direction. If you
Yes.
have the 22%, then the field shifts, and now whatever that 22% held, like let's say a higher, like let's say everybody wants war, but 22% wants peace.
Hmm.
Now, if they can hold that at the same time, you can shift towards peace. But it's true that one person can't just affect everything because of group consciousness.
Right.
We're on a planet where people are not all the same in their developmental
Right.
spiritual stages. A lot
Exactly.
of the worlds that conscious like star seeds come from, they are kind of homogenous, where you
Hmm.
would get like everybody about the same type of developmental stage, and then from there they just naturally kind of all advanced because they all one morphogenic field. But on earth everybody is different, and because of it we have many morphogenic fields with many different objectives and directives and parameters and ideas and belief systems. So we can only change ourselves. We cannot change someone else. We can only change who we are, because that's the domain we're in control of.
Hmm.
So from that standpoint, if you, let's say, want a more harmonious environment, and let's say like smaller circle, let's say your friends are not harmonious, they bitch about life and they kind of negative, and you wish to be more positive and you're a positive person, how come you're surrounded by not so positive people? I would say in this situation would be because they feed off you and you're letting them for whatever reason. So that would be step one, recognize that. Step
Hmm.
two would be, how do you need to change you to not be surrounded by those people? Part of it could be internal, part of it could be the action. If you do that, now you're vibrating at a different frequency, so you change you. By doing that, you then attract to you people who vibrate at that frequency. There are, let's say, other morphogenic fields of other communities that maybe are very friendly and high frequency type of people. And by being able to keep yourself at that frequency, you kind of shift there naturally.
Hmm.
Versus trying to change the group of people you're with, you change you, which then creates a different group of people around you. And some people from your current group in morphogenic field could follow you as well if they're able to stretch, but maybe they couldn't do it on their own.
And it's very exciting when you see the people who do stretch because you're like,
Of
"Wait,
course.
I
Yeah.
completely changed," but they went ahead and decided to change as well. That's amazing. I love this conversation, though. I love that you mentioned in other like, on other planetary existences, other densities, then there's more of a homogenized, soul evolution, and so that's why they can ascend together, but here we are a shit show, aren't we? But it's actually it can be helpful to recognize that. I think that can be a bit of a comfort. To me, sometimes that's a comfort to be like, "Wait a minute, I'm not working harder than other people when I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself, or if I'm feeling, let's say, disappointed in how this person, what I see, people are not capable of having compassion or caring about certain things. It's like, well, oh, wait a minute. We have really different perspectives. We have different, I don't know, soul evolution types. And that's not to actually make me feel egotistical. It's to make me feel sane. We just have so many different types on this planet. Right.
Right,
That's
and
just,
that's just a component of being here. So
and
right now,
it's hard work. And
right,
yeah,
92% of this planet are people who are below compassion frequency level.
92% is
Yeah,
wow. Oh
8%
gosh.
are above. So that 8%, that's the ones that usually identify as star seeds or sensitive
Hmm.
people or intuitive or whatever. We naturally 100% at compassion and above, as in
Hmm.
godhood or understanding or connecting and all that. But majority are the 92% are under. That does not
Hmm.
mean they're not capable of compassion. That just means they enter it and exit it. They don't stay there. They don't live there. That's not their dominating filter. It's something
Hmm.
that they experience occasionally. Usually, if they go to church or if they go to some spiritual practice or whatever, and then they fall right out of it.
Hmm. Or
So,
maybe something happens with their family. When people shift their opinion about, like, just the example that's coming up, gay is wrong, but then their child ends up being gay, and then they go, oh, actually, I think gay's okay.
mhm,
You know what I mean? Like someone close to them triggers a compassionate expansion.
mhm, yeah,
That's sometimes
that's
how people grow.
possible. But I'm also talking about the actual evolutionary level of a
Yeah,
specific soul. So you
right.
can, like the way I teach it in my Transcension Gate is that you can connect it to like school system, so it's easier. Majority of people on the planet Earth are in middle school.
Mm,
That's
wow.
tribal warfare. That's
Yeah, that makes
like
a lot of
one tribe against
that
another
tracks.
tribe, and they kind of clash, but they big fields in that way. That means they
Yeah.
don't really have a clear self. Their self is tribal.
Yeah.
Then some people are the what we would call a high school, like lower high school. That's
Hmm.
like negative selfish. So that would be manipulative, maybe politicians or CEOs of companies that then manipulate those larger tribes.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then above that is the cause level. Those are the people who stand up for causes. They like, in a positive, that will be like King Arthur, like that, the higher concept of standing for something that's bigger than you. In a
Yeah.
lower sense, it could be standing up for somebody's idea, but it's
Hmm.
still, that's the next level after selfish. And under the majority of the tribal kind of middle school, there would be like kindergarten. Those would be the people who just want to have families and have food and have sex, and they don't care about anything else.
Hmm.
So when you get to the majority of humans, it's where they have tribal fields, which means it could be a religious field, it could be a nationalistic field, it could be a political field, but their identity is linked to that.
Right.
That's kind of what determines
Right.
where the soul level is. It's who are you. So when
Mhm.
somebody is in a tribal level, it's not I want, I am, desiring, or I stand for. It's more like we want,
Mhm.
we stand for, but it's not a higher we.
Right,
It's
right.
the lower we. It's that, well, in my family, we always do it this way. Or in this
Mhm.
religion, we always hate on that and love on that, and so
Mhm.
on. So that's a limitation in conscious perception that the morphogenic field of the tribe kind of holds. And then there's another tribe that has completely different one, and so on. So majority of humans are in that level. And then there are few that are in that next level up, which is actually beginning of individuation, but it's a lower high school. It's very uncomfortable, awkward, and quite often selfish. And that's when you get corporate CEOs and you get like politicians and people that kind of have a more self, but they're doing manipulation of larger masses to their own advantage, not to the benefit of the masses. And then
Right.
the next level up, those are the ones who do a lot of things for the benefit of the masses from their perspective, which, by the way, is not always high, but they try.
Yeah.
And only after that, you get people that generally we would call spiritual.
Mhm.
This is where you really get to like, okay, we all matter. It's, I don't
Mhm.
care your religion, your status financially, your race, your nationality, none of that matters. Like, if you're in trouble, I'll help you. Like, it just goes at that kind of common sense that, hey, we're all human.
Mhm.
That's a beginning spiritual level. Those people might be religious, they might not be, but at least they are at the place where they see God in everything.
Mhm.
They might not know what God is, but they see that connectedness.
Right.
And then after that, that's when we get like higher levels using the school system would be like master's degree or PhD level. That's when you're like researching, what is God? Am I God? Oh, I am, like I'm the like that's where you get to that. But that's really small percentage of human population.
Wow. I actually literally have a YouTube video called "What is God?" And it viralized. For some reason, it got over 100,000 views overnight, but I don't think they were I think I think people thought that it was something that was more radical than a middle-aged lady, like, talking about metaphysics because they weren't very long views, but at any rate, so so,
That's
like, the
right.
star seed, advanced level spiritual, is that, like, 8% you're saying? Or is that
That's
within
an
the
8%.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so then the
Starseed would
causal
be like college level, master's degree and PhD.
got it,
So
okay.
anything like college level and up, star seeds. There are some earthlings, we call them forerunners. Those are the
Mhm,
ones that like avant-garde, the ahead of the human race.
mhm,
They're
mhm,
also at that level. They overlap with the star seeds. But
okay.
majority of earthlings are middle school with some in high school.
Yeah, but there is, potential. Like you said, they
Of
have the
course, everybody
option,
gets to the PhD
opportunity.
level. Every
Yes,
single
eventually.
soul gets to
Mhm,
PhD level eventually.
right,
It's the universal law. But
right.
for star seeds, I always remind people like, this is not your planet. You're
Mhm.
visiting, you're here to serve, you're here to do something, but don't try to change the house you're in when you're a guest. The house people have their own rules. So earthlings have slower developmental paths and kind of more steady earth connected, which is totally awesome and great. But as a group consciousness, they are young, and
Mhm.
being young doesn't mean that they're wrong or they messed up or there's something horrible going on. It's just they young. They haven't
Yeah.
grown up yet, and star seeds are ancient. So it's sort
Mhm.
of like putting an older person into, let's say, high school and then wondering, well, how come you're annoyed with all the teenagers? Or putting even further down in the middle school, how come you can't seem to teach anything, or they don't understand, or don't even want to learn? They're not even interested in what you're saying. That's
Right.
because they're different level of consciousness. So if you would want to educate or somehow influence people at those slightly lower levels of consciousness, you would have to learn how to translate what you bringing to the level where their interest is.
Mhm.
And that is very different than, let's say, what maybe a starseed to starseed would have as a conversation.
Right. So, in the raw material in the Law of One, Ra refers to the starseeds who continue to come reincarnate, the brothers and sisters of sorrow, or the wanderers, the
Mm-hmm.
ones who are going to. So, what is your perspective on that? Like, do a lot of starseeds, while we're ancient and foreign here, are a lot of starseeds continually reincarnating to try to up level this, or like what I mean? Like, can you speak on that bit?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, let's just say when you come to this planet, you have to get a visa. Like you have to show how you're going to contribute. Nobody's just going
Hmm.
to let you in if you're
Yeah.
not one of the Earthling Soul Group. So that means every single starseed that is here incarnate is here for a reason. Like you have something you meant to deliver, or you literally would not be allowed to be incarnate on Earth.
Yeah.
So having said that, literally the contract is for one lifetime. So
Mm.
when you come in, if you're able to be completely open, not create any karmic patterns or any hooks, and then you die, you can move on, or you can choose to make a contract for the next life. But the law of this simulation is that if you come in and you left something behind, as in karmic pattern or a
Yeah.
hook or some bitterness or like some issue, you can't leave because now it's like a rubber band holding you back. That's why star seeds keep reincarnating, not necessarily because they have to, but because if we get so wounded, then we have such a difficulty then being pure and open, and we're kind of like stuck in defense or bitterness or projections or whatever. And a lot of star seeds are pretty wounded, and it takes a lot to kind of heal that. That's why there are more lifetimes than one. But
Right.
when you don't have any leftovers, then when you're done, you just leave.
Knock wood. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. What do you feel? How does Jesus and other avatars and masters like that fit into this? Let's just say Jesus specifically.
Same concept. It's a soul that comes in that has a specific issue,
Mhm,
but also specific mission. The issue usually it's happening during the lifetime by taking on something,
mhm,
and then it depends how they handle it.
mhm,
If they able to handle it and be done, then they are move on. They
mhm,
done. If they not, then there are actually some of the ascended masters that kind of came back in later in different
mhm,
forms. The difference is really the range and can you keep the range or not. So sort of like I'm one of those. I mean, I'm not calling myself ascended master or anything, but I'm one of the examples of this odd configuration where I did not fall asleep. So
mhm,
imagine if you have that with a higher range and take out the personal, and then you mostly have the mission. So a lot of the beings that come from higher frequency down here and able to hold it without compression, and if their mission is meant to affect a large group of people, not everybody has that mission, then they move on. When they move on, they can shift all the way back to where they came from. So that's also a universal law that, like, let's say if you're a 5D being, fifth
mhm,
dimensional, you
mhm,
come into Earth, which is 3D, so you incarnate. When you're done and you die, and let's say you want to go, back out, you don't go into 3D on the other side. You actually go back to 5D because that's your range to begin with. But for somebody who's, let's say, barely in a third dimensional consciousness, when they die, they just kind of get recycled back in here until they can progress further. And the progress only occurs when you have a body.
mhm. Right.
So if you're outside, you know everything, but you can't shift anywhere.
Yeah.
You have to come here to do something that then shifts you. So a lot of the ascended masters literally utilize that. I mean, from our perspective, they ascended masters, but really they
Right.
utilize this as a trampoline. Somebody can come in with 5D, kind of like Jesus, and then Yeshua, he did his
Mhm,
thing. And when he shifted inside the body to 6D.
mhm.
That allowed him to then move on, and he didn't die on a cross or anything. He didn't like shift and
Right.
gone. He changed the body configuration and actually stayed till 72. But anyway, when he actually shifted completely out of 3D, he went into 6D. So he shifted the range a little bit. And now he's at the 10D. So Sananda and many like Buddha and many other people of that sort, they use that as
Mhm.
a trampoline to shift consciousness. But that's usually a very special contract. That's not meant to be like, oh, everybody meant to be Jesus. It's usually a lifetime where you take on a lot because the entire morphogenic field is going to be anchoring through you. That's
Mhm.
why any master like this usually suffered a lot.
Yeah.
That's because they're holding on the collective pain. And
Right.
then if they're able to kind of like move through that and move it on to a higher perspective, that's when they then shift.
And you know what? It's interesting because the Christian religion has it kind of correct in language, but not in practice. That how he, like what his example is or the path that he took was able to it has shifted things, but the practice is if you just say that you believe in him, then you have that as well. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
it's
but that has absolutely nothing to do with Yeshua anymore. That's
I
now
know, of
some
course
men that
not.
sat together and decided that this would work better for our civilization to
Yeah.
think this way. So
Yeah.
if you know any history, like in 332 BC, when they shifted the Nicene, but they like burnt
Council of
all the other
Nicaea.
books and just picked the specific pathway that was more beneficial for the empire. That's
Mhm.
like already right there political. So
Right.
even right after the generally this is like if we step away from Jesus to how it works in general, a master comes in, master brings in the frequency range and the message.
Mhm.
People around the master, the close disciples or students or like the immediate circle, while
Mhm.
the master is alive, he or she, those
Mhm.
are the ones that get the first immediate imprint, but they already filtering it through their own story.
Right.
So whoever is attracted to that master are kind of like the faucets of the main message that's already going to be a little bit distorted.
Mhm.
After the master moves on, this group of people goes on into the world to teach it. And if you give it enough time, those will be actually completely different teachings, because they all have a different angle on what they're doing. And then out of that grows religion, which most religions are actually meant to manipulate people and not
Yeah.
support them. So kind
Yeah.
of like consciousness ends at that point. So anytime somebody is looking at religion, if they really want to utilize it for consciousness, they need to clean up the religion and look for the essence, look for what's the message, what's the magic of it, because
Mm-hmm.
whatever that is, it's the truth. But the problem is that, religions, they're written as rules. So those rules are written by humans, and those humans were not conscious and very much not interested most of the time in helping people become self-aware and self-authority, right?
Right.
Instead, they kind of much more interested in like, how do I keep my empire from erupting at war or something like that, or how do
Mm-hmm.
I control the masses so they pay taxes, and many other pieces. So it kind of by then is not really about the message.
Right. It's
Yeah.
definitely not about, right, personal spiritual sovereignty. No, it's about, yeah, paying
Yeah.
taxes. It's about politics. This has been such an amazing conversation, and so you also but a lot of the work you're doing. So you do teach a lot of this kind of material. Do you? And then are you working one on one with people? I know you do soul aligned business. Wealth energetics is what you teach. Speak about that kind of work that you're doing. That you're actually helping spiritual entrepreneurs to figure out how to human a little bit, but
Yeah, I actually do kind of both.
Mhm.
I have a program that is for people who are not running their own businesses, but just want to become conscious. It's called Transcension Gate. That's where I'm doing my quantum evolution course right now. So that is about this kind of stuff we were so far talking about, like expanding your consciousness, understanding your inner authority, your true soul sovereignty, and your path, and so on. And then what I am more like actually involved in and what I see in clients is working with women who have a gift, and they are delivering that gift to the world. Like maybe they are amazing healers, maybe they
Mhm.
using some energy modality, maybe they mentoring somebody in empowerment and consciousness, and like herbalists and acupuncturists and people who kind of like download messages and work with dragons and fairies and planet and wombs and all that magical stuff. And they're good at what they do. Their clients have results, but they don't know how to actually turn it into business. So it
Mhm.
always kind of stays as almost like a hobby or a part-time thing, or something that like if they're choosing to do it, it doesn't generate enough income. So the wealth energetics part is to help women like that who have a message, have a gift, have a mission, to literally do their soul work, but in a way where they are well resourced to do it, when they're getting
Mhm.
paid well for doing the very thing that they're already doing. So
Mhm.
that's where I teach my wealth energetics. It's a conscious future mastermind when we literally work on creating your conscious future. So we look at the quantum field, we look at the possibilities, we look at the specific place you wish you were, and
Mhm.
then we look at what's the discrepancy between here and there, what needs to be adjusted in the business strategy, in the marketing, in the messaging, but also in internal stuff like self-confidence, like abundance mindset, like energetics of presence and owning your soul expertise. So all those things together. So the structural, practical side and the multidimensional, nonlinear side. And that then allows my clients to go from, like, let's say charging $200 an hour for appointments to making 20,000 a month, or going from charging $50 for some reading that they were doing when they really were doing so much more than the thing that they were doing, and
Yeah.
then selling a $6,000 program with ease and feeling like, oh my God, I'm actually like having space and I'm not stuck with constantly searching for clients. They just come to me because I'm the vortex of this wealth energy that comes
Mhm.
naturally, like naturally attracts. So that's
Wow.
what I do.
And is that a group program, individuated program? What does the structure look like in those
It's a group program.
structures?
It's a
Uh-huh.
container that's sort of a hybrid.
Yeah.
Within that group program, each person gets unique personal attention because I read their soul design and I
Mhm.
work with them to build their business on their unique soul design. So it's not
Yeah.
a cookie cutter thing. It's
Mhm.
uniquely, specially aligned to each person. And each person
Mhm.
is different. And there's also a group container where everybody gets to kind of share and see. So when I teach one, another one can get like,
Of
oh my
course.
God, this is what I was missing, and so on. So it's a combination of a personal one-on-one laser coaching and mentoring with energetics and the business advice, and the group container for the overall energetic development, because group energy is like incredibly magical in
It is, yeah.
raising one's idea of what's normal. Like people come in thinking like, well, it's normal to charge $100, and I don't know, maybe I can have $1,000 program. And then they turn around, they're like people charging 8,000, 10,000, 15,000, and selling and doing it in integrity and feeling like amazing and everything is great. And they kind of go like, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah.
If they do that. So group container is amazing for that.
Yes, the group work, I know a lot of times people feel shy or something like that, wanting, if there's something that's a group situation, but it is so dynamic, because it's like the coming together in that conscious container. It's almost like a virus. You know what I mean? Like everybody catches everybody else's,
Exactly.
and it's exponential. Then when, you know what I mean? Like that's how energy works.
Well,
When
and
there's a
women
bond.
learn through osmosis almost more than linear. So maybe
Yeah.
men, I mean, I mostly work with women. So maybe men require kind of like direct step by step kind of linear path. Women, you can just like be in the energy of somebody and then have some light bulb go off, go and make some magic happen. And like one thing just energetically influenced another, and you didn't even supposedly do any specific thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the magic of the group. Yeah.
This that reminds me, one time I was taking a business course, marketing business course, and the first week or two, I don't remember, was mindset. And we had this great NLP, facilitator, and he was teaching, and it was like abundance, 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 abundance. And I just caught it. Like my mindset shifted, and after like 3 days, halfway through just the first week, my calendar started filling up so much because I hadn't put like reasonable boundaries on my calendar because wasn't getting enough, and I had to wait, hold on, slow down, and I hadn't done anything different. It just my energy signaled all of it, and I had to like rearrange my schedule. So, yeah, it's
Exactly.
amazing.
That's actually very much like in my view, a lot of it is you have to have clarity on what is your soul expertise, like
Hmm.
the true gift you're bringing, not whatever
Hmm.
the blah blah you've learned and studied and got
Hmm.
certifications, 4 letters after your name, but like who are you really? And own that unapologetically, like, yeah, I'm totally awesome at that.
Hmm.
Then you figure out who is this for, because it's not
Hmm.
for everybody. So who are the specific humans or non-humans who are meant to benefit by this magical thing you're bringing? And the third is, how do you talk to them about that thing in a way that compels them to go towards you? So you don't have
Right.
to go chasing them, but instead you're being you. You create energy vortex by you being you. That's all wealth energetics here. And
Hmm.
by doing that and fully owning your gift, unapologetically, like, yep, that's who I am. I claiming it. I know what I do. Like, I know that what I teach, even though there's business and marketing and all that, but it's like timeless wisdom, multidimensional, whatever. I can collapse timeline like into hours, into days, when somebody would go into detour for years. So I
Wow.
own that within me. And that naturally comes off as a confidence. Like I know, and I'm in integrity too. Like if I can't help somebody, I will tell them. I'm not going to try to like manipulate them.
Yeah.
So when somebody claims that and they know that, like, okay, I only want to work with specific people, that immediately cleans up all of the, what if I'm not good enough? What if they don't like it? Well, then they wrong people. So you want to talk to the people who would love what you do and want it. And
Hmm.
then how do you talk about it? So soul expertise, who is this for, and how to talk to them. And
Hmm.
energetics kind of wrapped around these three main things. And as long as you do that, and obviously there's business strategy and marketing, messaging, whatever, but like that's the main core piece, then you can turn anything. Like I had a client who worked with dragons, and she's like, I don't know, how do you charge for
I work
that?
with
I'm like,
dragons.
well, you need to figure out what the dragons are for, because yeah,
Yeah,
nobody's gonna
exactly.
pay you to just talk to a dragon, but what is this for? So when she figured it out, she started selling a $12,000 program, and it works. People come and want to work with her. And I have so many examples of this really odd things. Like I had a client who was working with clearing up generational, ancestral kind of
Hmm.
karmic weight.
Yeah.
and doing it in a shamanic way because she's kind of generational shaman herself. And again, charging before probably $50 or $60, something like that. And it's like, okay, you have a lot of people and you're doing a lot of work, you're busy, but you're exhausted.
Hmm.
How well do you think you're actually changing this planet? Not so much. So we shifted it into working with fewer people, charging much more. I don't remember what it was. I think it's 7,000, and having less people, but now really going deep and doing the work, and through those clients doing the work with the planet, which is kind of what her contract is. So now she's getting paid in a sense to work with the planet by working with the clients who benefit greatly by having her in her life. And all of it is because she claimed her expertise, she figured out who is it for, and she now can speak about it with the correct energetics.
That's amazing. That's fantastic. And you also talk about masculine business strategy and feminine quantum energetics. You touched upon that a little bit. And so what is that about? Speak about all of that, if you will.
Well, masculine is linear.
Hmm.
So it has nothing to do with man or a woman. That's
Yeah.
just like the terms we use. I actually use electric and magnetic.
Yeah.
Electric as in how electricity runs in a wire. It's linear, it's masculine.
Hmm.
Magnetic, it's feminine. It's kind of like the moonlight. It's everywhere all at once.
Hmm.
So everybody has both polarities. Just because you're a woman doesn't mean you only have magnetic. Just because you're a man, you only have electric. Everybody has both. Nobody's 50-50. And some are more on one side, some on another. And a lot of times we get conditioned to think we're supposed to be a certain way when
Hmm.
actually it's not natural.
Yeah.
Like for me, I actually have much more electric than magnetic, but it allows me to be the leader that I need to be for my work. If I was the other way, I wouldn't be able to do what I meant to do. And the same thing for every single person. Whichever the polarity balance you have is uniquely situated for your contract, for your mission, for what you meant to do, learn, and how you meant to affect the world through you. So in the work that I do, I connect both of those sides, but I literally have strengths on both sides. That's kind of
Hmm.
less usual. Usually people have strengths on one side and another one is more private. I happen to have both. So I utilize structural business stuff. And since I work with women who are spiritual and most of them are starseeds or at least really out there forerunners, they usually get terrified at the sign of a 20-step funnel or some crazy business strategy or sales, all that. And I kind of like clean all of that up into like, what do you really need? Because you really
Hmm.
need like 3 things. And if you get to do 3 things right, you can have a business. You don't need 500 things that everybody tries to ram down your throat saying you have to have it. You really don't. When I
Hmm.
started making, God, I think I was at 6 figures. I had no website. I had no business card. I had no flyer. I had a phone. That's all I had. And I
Yeah.
had me with confidence and talking. So
Hmm.
you really don't need a lot of things that you think you need, but you still need to have a strategy. And
Right.
most people who are spiritual kind of bad at strategy. Strategy implies linear step by step. If you
Yeah.
don't know like what comes after this and after that, or how do you assemble the result you want, it's going to be a long path and difficult a lot of times. So that's part of the masculine side, is the strategizing, the business, the marketing, the messaging, like the actual business part, which I happen to be good at. And the other side, that's because I have the access, being clairvoyant and having the multidimensional people in my head my entire life.
Yeah.
I always feel that link, and I can see the essence of a person. I can see their possibilities, timelines that are more beneficial, and so on. So we work with the quantum field. That's why my program is called the Conscious Future Method, because we literally work with how to create your future consciously, not just
Hmm.
like how you randomly end up somewhere, or how to sit there and meditate and intend and do vision boards and hope for the best, but how do you actually apply strategy
Hmm.
paired with this multidimensional quantum access that allows you to pull from the quantum field magical things when it literally looks like magic. It's like I'm doing this one foot in front of the other in the strategy part, like really minimal, everything is good, and then boom, amazing this happens, amazing that happens. And the big happenings we don't create by strategy. Strategy is the foundation, and then the magical stuff kind of lands onto it because you gave it the path. And that's
Hmm.
what I put together for my clients. I do that for business currently. I used to do it for other things like health and relationships and whatever. Now I
Hmm.
focus mostly on business for this spiritual type of people, not every kind of a business. Like I don't work with a car wash or a hair salon, but somebody who's literally doing something that their gift inside their heart and their being and their essence, and they just want to figure out how to make that mission something that they can live off
Yeah.
and feel, like that's what they do instead of having to have a job or something. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm just so blown away by this whole conversation, Eugenia. It's really amazing. Excuse me. So, you have, you have those two programs, you have the different work that you're doing, you have your books. Is there, what other ways, or what else is there to share about how people can connect with your work, how they can work with you, or, what else do you have? Any last things to say?
Well, I'll give you 4 simple ways. One is
Good.
you can find me on a Facebook. That's
Uh-huh.
just like I look for Eugenia Oganova and you will see lots of activity on everything. Another one is I would like to give you guys a gift. If you are a spiritual type of a coach, healer, mentor, something, and you're maybe already generating income, seeing clients, awesome. Maybe you're just starting and you're
Mhm.
like not even sure how to start and you're afraid of the typical business stuff. I have a free training that will really help you understand, and then you can see what you want to do next with the information in it. It's called How Coaches and Healers Get to Sustainable 10K per month doing their soul work. And they find high ticket clients who are excited and want to pay the money instead of you having to go and chase them. It's actually like magic, but it's possible. And like I know how to do that, and my clients do that. So that training is soulstrategywebinar.com. So if you go there, that's what you're going to see. Another thing, the number 3 thing, so this is 2. Number 3 is the program I have mentioned, which is Quantum Evolution Transcension Gate. That is an ongoing program. It's a year long. So right now we're kind of in the middle, but you can still come in and you get access to everything that has already happened. That if you are the person who's maybe not a business person, but you really resonate with everything I was saying as far as consciousness and the cycles and the star seeds and like all of that is in that program. This is definitely check it out. That's in transcensiongate.com. So if you go there, that's my main website. You can find Quantum Evolution course in there. And that's pretty much it. That's the main access to me that allows you to have one way or another benefit by some of my teachings. I do a lot of free stuff. So if you're on my website, there's like a library of probably hundreds of different posts and educational things. And the last thing was the book. If you are interested in personal development, I have a book called Mission Alpha, The Wise and Passionate You. Mission Alpha is literally like your Mission Alpha, like your main way of living your life. So that's a book that kind of like a manual. So that's like 10 years of my teaching that was a curriculum of my school that now is put together in the book because I don't have that program anymore, but you can have access to it by reading the book. And it literally, I always joke, it's like if you're not psychic, by the end of the book, you'll be psychic because you like literally understand like, oh my God, I get how the whole thing works. Like I get it now. So that you can get on Amazon. Again, just search my name and you'll see Mission Alpha.
Well, we'll have all of the links in the description of the podcast. So, and
thank you very much.
well, I feel like also that if someone is listening and they're like, well, I don't have a spiritual business, I don't have a heart-based coaching business or whatever, but I really kind of want to, they could start with Transcension Gate, right? And then that might start to shape things toward maybe in
Yeah,
a
and
year,
if
then they
they
would be
know what their gift is, like
Mhm.
if they actually, maybe they're not getting paid clients yet, but they practicing energy work, or maybe they like always talk to angels, like they have something that they know they have, they just haven't figured out how to make a business. Watch that webinar because I have
Right.
different level programs. I have programs for totally beginners. I have programs for somebody who's already having a business. I have programs for people who are like at 7 figures. So it depends on where you are. But if you are interested in figuring out how to make money doing your thing, then it's Soul Strategy webinar. If you're interested in like business is not your thing, but you just really want to get consciously aware, then it's either Quantum Evolution or the book Mission Alpha.
Got it. Amazing. I'm so excited. I'm like, I have to end this conversation because I have to go look at your work. You are taking time away from me engaging with you somehow. I'm kidding. Really, I've had the most fun. And do you do anything in person? Do you do any in-person events? I mean, obviously we've had the lockdown, but we're coming out of it.
Not
Is that
really.
anything
I
you do?
used to travel and do everything in person.
Hmm.
And after a while, all that, being all over the world and living in hotels and airplanes kind of got tiresome. So
Yeah.
now when I do an event, it's either free or a paid event, it's online. That
Uh-huh.
because I have clients all over the world, I have
Right.
clients like literally everywhere. So that way, it's actually kind of an easier way to get everyone together in a way that does not inconvenience people. So
Hmm.
it's not in person, but it's almost in person. It's kind of like
Right.
this.
Absolutely. Were you already doing remote work before the pandemic? You were
Yes,
already,
I was
yeah, I know.
doing remote work for a
Me
while.
too.
I think for 7 years, six
Yeah,
years, something
me
like
too.
that. Yeah.
And it was, I kind of had just started to see some people in person locally, but yeah, when the pandemic hit and everyone's like, "What's a Zoom?" And I was like, "I've been using it for years." It was like totally natural to me that why wouldn't you have
Exactly.
clients all over the world? And even before Zoom, there was the telephone. So,
Yeah,
but at
and I
any
used
rate,
to work on a telephone before Zoom
right.
happened because I've
Hmm.
been in business for over 25 years. So there was
Hmm.
no Zoom back then.
Yeah.
It was just telephone. And that's the thing now I hear like, oh my God, how can somebody pay, $1,000 or $5,000 for a phone call? And it's like, well, not one phone call, it's a
Yeah.
series, but yeah, of course,
Yeah.
because it's not about the delivery, it's about the energy connection. So
And
absolutely.
I wonder though, and I think that that might be because I don't know, we're already thinking in metaphysical ways, so that's why it seems very natural. This is basically metaphysical connection because we're not physically proximate to one another, and it's just as genuine to us. It's just as authentic, I guess, right? Maybe that's why.
Absolutely. No, no, that's actually very true. And especially like for me, because nothing is ever linear, because
Right.
I'm bored this way. I remember being 3 years old, standing in the doorway of my apartment, and my father was trying to talk to me, and I was trying to explain to him about my friend standing next to me. But my friend was an energy guide. And
Mhm.
my father couldn't get the concept because he could only see me in a doorway, but not my friend. And no matter how much I was trying to explain to him, that being was really not visible to him. And I think I was 3.5 when I finally like, oh, the things I can bump into are the things they see. So if I can walk through it, they cannot actually see, which made me realize that like 90% of everything I'm seeing, nobody else does.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so with that way of thinking, telephone or Zoom or whatever, like it's all non-linear anyway.
Right. Yeah. I
We're not
had
really here.
imaginary friends too. I had imaginary friends, and when my sisters would say to me, "Oh, where is," their names were Little Mama and Polish. "Where's Little Mama now?" And I was like, "She's over there." And they would go and like step on her, and it'd make me cry, even though I knew it wasn't hurting her. It hurt my
Mhm.
feelings that they were trying to hurt my feelings. You know what I mean?
Well, and that a
So
lot
yeah,
of times happens because people are terrified of something that they can't understand and especially can see. That's a
mhm.
biological freak out that
Yeah,
happens like, oh, there's
yeah,
something there that's watching me or maybe here but can't see me. So then unfortunately, the quite often the defense mechanism is to go and attack it first as the
yeah.
way to protect self. But
Right,
ideally as a child, like you grow out of that. But some adults never grow out of that, unfortunately, and that's
that's
a
true.
learning curve.
Right, and they just call it skepticism or something like that.
Right, but skepticism is just really a limitation of choosing not to open up.
Yeah.
So, kind of like to conclude all of this today, I would say that if you can imagine it, it's real for you. Not only that
Right.
it's real for you, it's possible for you. Not
Mhm.
only that it's possible for you, it's possible for you now.
Right.
And that's a really good thing to kind of get your mind to wrap around that if you imagine some relationship or career change or a health positive change or a client, if you're a business owner and you're looking to attract a specific type of a client, if you can really imagine it, not kind of hope and wish for it, but really like make it a dream, walk up into that movie, imagine every detail. What is the smell? What does the person look like? How does it feel? That does not mean you're going to get exactly whatever you imagine, but by the fact of you imagining, you're shortcutting you now to you in a quantum field where that something exists.
Wow. I love that. If you and absolutely, if you can imagine it, it is real. It is real for you, and it is real for you now. That's beautiful. Gotta stitch that on a pillow. Remind ourselves that. Well, it's also a cautionary tale too, because would you like to imagine that you are broke or mistreated, or
Well, and
would
that's why
would you
so
like
many
that
people
reality?
like in this recycling of the
Mm-hmm.
issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not because they can't seem to move on, but because if they constantly expecting the bad thing to happen, that's
They're
what
creating
happens.
it. Yeah.
So to my clients, I always say, like, if you cannot not go into what if this, whatever I'm afraid happens, then at least make sure you have the opposite.
Yeah.
Okay, what if this bad thing happened? But what if this most amazing thing happens? And
Right.
that way you neutralize the charge. So
Mhm.
ideally, you don't have to negative at all. But if for whatever reason you get stuck and you just like can't help yourself, which is the first thought because habitually you conditioned yourself, then stop yourself, take a breath, and say, okay, I heard you. Now, what could be the most amazing thing? That could happen too. And hold that with the same charge in your being. And as
Yeah.
long as you do that, you neutralize the charge. So now you're much more likely to attract something positive and amazing.
And immediately your body responds more
Of course.
healthfully, you know what I mean? Like, the
Yeah.
blood's not gonna constrict, the breathing is gonna yeah, absolutely. So why not
Mm-hmm.
imagine the positive thing? It's at least if, worst case scenario, you're healthier. Well, I could keep you for hours, but I don't want to do that. Well, but then you can collapse timelines, so maybe we have been here for
Yeah,
hours.
let's collapse the timeline.
But this
That's
has really
great.
been such an honor and a joy, and I just appreciate you so much for all the work you're doing on our beautiful planet and in our amazing galaxy and our wonderful universe, and for sharing it here on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Eugenia.
Oh, thank you so much, Tricia. This has been such a joy.